Inmost. Released originally as an iOS exclusive on October 11th, 2019, is a puzzle platform game developed by Hidden Layer Games and published by Chucklefish. And honestly, it's probably one of the most moving games I've played in a while. I personally got this game through a Humble Bundle, and it sat in my Steam library for months before my Steam Deck being delivered prompted me to take a good look at my backlog, and I am incredibly glad this was one of the games that I played. From top to bottom, the atmosphere and emotion that Inmost invokes is second to none. For any game to cause such reaction is an amazing feat, but to do so using pixel art, that takes some skill and dedication to your craft. Speaking of the art, anyone who knows me knows that I am a sucker for pixel art. I often choose games to play on the back of it having pixel art alone. I'm not entirely sure what it is about the art style that draws me to it. Nostalgia maybe? I'm not sure. But what I do know is that this game is visually stunning. It manages to convey the dark, depressing world that Inmost takes place in incredibly well, using a very limited palette of blues and grey. You can't help but feel a sense of despair for the beings that are forced to live in this world where it's constantly raining, where there is danger at every step, and where the inhabitants are constantly plagued by a being that feeds on pain and suffering. The beautiful art is helped along by the slow, haunting soundtrack that plays through your adventure. As you explore, the music is quiet, piano and string instruments forcing you to realise just how desolate this world is. But as the story begins to unfold, it reaches crescendos that drive home the importance of the moments you are experiencing and how they affect the characters that you play as. The sound design in general is meticulous. You hear the rustle of leaves overhead as the wind blows, the creaking of wood as you rave levers and pulleys, the swing of a sword. The visuals and the audio come together to create an actual work of art. But this is a video game. How does it play? In Inmost, you play through around 20 chapters split between 3 separate characters, each one controlling differently as if they're from entirely different genres of games. Firstly, you have the hero. He can roll and jump but has no means to defend himself. The hero sections are almost a light Metroidvania style of gameplay. You must find items in order to progress through certain barriers, and in combat situations you must run and trap enemies in order to prevail. Secondly, you play as the girl. The girl is even more defenseless than the hero. She can climb short distances, pick objects up to move them, and jump a short distance. The girl's entire story takes place in one house. Her genre is more of a walking simulator / puzzle genre as you try to unveil the mysteries of her home. Thirdly, we have the knight. The knight plays completely differently to the other 2 protagonists and is definitely set in an action platformer style of gameplay. The knight has a sword which he uses a lot. He can also dodge roll and uses a grappling hook in order to move between platforms. These 3 protagonists play so differently for a very specific reason. You are supposed to feel helpless as the girl. She's obviously very young, and without going into spoilers, it's stuck in an awful situation. It made me feel helpless. On the flip side, the knight is supposed to feel powerful. The enemies that plague you can be killed, and you move quickly through them in order to complete your tasks. It made me feel powerful. And finally, the hero is supposed to be a mixture of the 2. Yes, you are helpless in most scenarios, but being smart and using your environment and the tools you find allow you to pass anything that comes your way. The hero allowed me to feel hope in an increasingly hostile world. The only downside I felt to the gameplay sometimes, especially as the hero, I found myself not knowing which direction to go in, aimlessly walking around until I stumbled across the correct door or an NPC that could point me the correct way. Some people may enjoy this element, but for me it's not what I prefer from these type of games. This game's main focus is to tell a story, and I feel the immersion dips slightly when I can't continue to unravel it. The only other downside to the game in general is the length. It is very short, and while I got it very cheap, it is currently sat at £12 on Steam. It's completely up to you whether this is worth a 2 or 3 hour experience or not. Finally, I want to talk about the story. You'll spend the majority of this game wondering what in the actual is going on. One minute you're playing as a man making his way through the world, but why is hardly explained. The knight is doing the bidding of the creature that consumes people's pain and suffering, but why? But the most bewildering part of all is how do these stories fit together? Why they're being told in the same game? Believe it or not, they come together beautifully at the end. Everything falls into place in a conclusion that rivals any AAA story-driven game you've played. Wrapping up, while the game does have some downsides, I believe the atmosphere, storytelling and gameplay more than make up for them, which is why I've decided to award Inmost an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and if you've played Inmost, please let me know what you thought down in the comments below. I've been Purple Crab. Thank you for tuning in.